الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين صدق الله العظيم. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, regarding ayat number 152 of Surat al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. You remember me and I will remember you. وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. Be grateful to me and do not be of those who do kufr, who disbelieve. Regarding the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and its many categories. One of the major categories, or the main category, is the masnoon adhkar, those adhkar, the forms of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was done by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that was taught to us, the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The masnoon adhkar, beginning with the adhkar after every salah, tasbih, saying subhanallah 33 times, tahmeed, saying alhamdulillah 33 times, takbir, saying Allahu Akbar 34 times, and in some narrations 33 times, and one time la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Taking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in various forms 100 times after every salah. Coming to the effect of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we went into the nature of insan, the nature of the human being, specifically the nature of the qalb, the heart of every human being. The nature of this human being, or his heart, the qalb of the human being. What is amazing is the term that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fixed for this heart or qalb. That qallaba yuqallibu taqlib, this word qalb, when you take it, the literal translation is something that is constantly changing, or changing from one condition to another condition. In the ayat of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this term also. يُقَلِّبُ اللَّهُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He turns and He changes the day and the night. The night and day, they're constantly changing. They're not stagnant. On one side you have the night, and then you have the day as far as the timing is concerned. But also throughout the year, sometimes the night is getting longer, and other times the day is getting longer. So they're also changing as far as the minutes are concerned, and even the hours are concerned. And sometimes the change is so drastic that it can be clearly seen the length of the day in summer versus the length of the day in winter. And it's very clear from sunrise to sunset, the distance of time, which is made even more clear in the Western world, where they have something called daylight savings time and standard time. But even without that, if you check the extremes of the days and nights, the extreme longest day, the June 21st, and the extreme shortest day, December 21st. When you check the hours, you'll be surprised how many hours apart the days are from one another, how much lengthier June 21st is from the December 21st, the extreme. But what is amazing is that the change is so subtle. It's happening few minutes every single day. It is so subtle. We hardly notice it. So that subtle change that is happening every single day, few minutes, or sometimes 1-2 minutes every single day that's happening, when it's added up, it makes the days and the nights such a great difference in number of hours. But because it is happening every single day, we don't necessarily notice the difference on such a grand scale. All of a sudden, we don't even realize that we have moved from one season to another season, that the days have changed as far as their length is concerned. So the term qalb also is subtle change that happens, which also gives us the indication that things should not be where we take extreme measures immediately. We human beings were not built for that. But on a gradual scale, when things are done gradually over time, it builds into the very nature of the human being. And that is also how the qalb, how the heart of us human beings, it works. When we want some change to happen in the heart, it happens in a subtle way. There's a system that is very famous within the times, that what we understand, just to explain the background of the system. On one side, we have the doctors that deal with the biology of the human being, this physical body, the regular doctors that we have, the physicians, and all of the experts in the field. But they're experts in the physical body. There was also a time, and it's still there, where there were spiritual doctors. And I'm not talking about in certain places in the world, the shaman or the African doctor, not those kind of. They used to be authentic, and there still are authentic, righteous ulama and scholars that specialize in the spiritual sciences of medicine. And it is a whole world in itself. But one thing that is, to go into those details, very lengthy, but just to make one point very clear, was that one very common practice in the spiritual world, often at times people would go and seek out medical help, and this was generally, especially in the case of addictions or certain psychological disorders. So when they would go seek out the medical assistance, and if that was not beneficial in helping the person with their addiction or the issue that they were having, so they would go seek out the ulama and the scholars, and the spiritual doctors would always first advise them to go and seek out the actual medications, the medicine for the physical sense, and to take physical means in dealing with their addictions or their problems. But if that did not work, then there was a system in the spiritual world which is still there, that especially in helping someone with an addiction, or to help someone become more righteous with certain a'mal. So there was a system, and there is a system of developing a habit and breaking a habit. So breaking an addiction, and on the other side, developing and building a particular beautiful character or a beautiful good deed in your life. The universal system was a system of 40 days, starting with 40 days. That was the starting point. And this number was or is taken from the Quran, particularly the i'tikaf of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. When the Bani Israel were in the desert, so Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he was invited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 30 nights. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increased 10 more nights, making it 40 nights. This is mentioned in Surah Al-A'raf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَوَاعَدْنَا مُوسَى 30 لَيْلَةً وَأَتْمَمْنَاهَا بِعَشْرٍ فَتَمَّ مِيقَاتُ رَبِّهِ 40 لَيْلَةً. And we entrusted for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, or we fixed for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam 30 nights, and when he came, we completed it with 10 more, completing 40 nights. So the system of 40 nights, in a sense of i'tikaf, where a person with a particular problem, let's start with the addiction aspect, with a particular addiction is taken, and in those 40 nights or 40 days, a particular system is implemented in the life of the person that slowly, gradually weans them off the addiction within 40 days. And it's very, very gradual. There's a particular system that for a particular number of days, a person is given whatever. And just to give you an example, a person may be addicted to a particular drug. So they start to wean him off. And again, this is under the direction of experts. We should not try and do this on our own. You go to the spiritual experts, and they also have applied in the system of psychology and also psychiatry. They also have these similar systems, and they have other number of days and other number of months. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter time, but in the spiritual world, a universal system was 40 days. So the person is weaned off, slowly taken off that drug within 40 days. And that's phase one. And that system is repeated 3 times, or it goes up to about 4 months. So a person within 40 days is weaned off the drug, then the next 40 days is the point of him getting back into the society without that addiction. And then the next 40 days is a system where it completely comes out of his system. And even if the person is presented with that drug or in a condition where he may even do that drug, he still has absolutely no inclination to get involved in that drug. 4 months is a time that is almost, what we say, kicking the habit completely. And again, it works in different ways in psychology and psychiatry. There's much more details related to this. But the reason I'm mentioning this system is because this is very, very unique to how the human heart works. It generally in our lives, without us even realizing it, and this is actually a unique system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created within us human beings from the very time before even coming into this dunya, coming into this world. In the womb of the mother, we have different phases, 40-day phases, and then there's a 4-month phase, and then after that. So within these phases, from the very, very beginning, certain changes happen to us human beings from the very, very beginning. Some of these changes are subtle, some of these changes are some are gradual, some are bigger changes, but all of these changes happen within these different periods of 40 days or a period of 4 months. So this is very, very unique to the human heart. Don't expect that you will do something right away and all of a sudden you will become an expert and you're going to be perfectly normal with it. It takes time just to get used to something, just to adapt to something. The system of adaptation. We human beings, we don't necessarily evolve, as evolution requires a complete change, but as human beings, we do adapt. You take a human being, put him in the cold weather. After some time, they'll adapt. Take a human being, put him in the heat. After some time, they'll adapt. But that adaptation takes time. 40 days, 4 months. And this is something that is very, very normal for our lives. And you can see it most in children. As you put the children in school, in the very beginning, very difficult for them to get used to it. A point comes after 1-2 months, child is so happy that they don't even want to go home. Every day after school, some of the parents have to get involved just to bring them home, if they're very young. As they grow older, conditions change. Generally after summer, it gets very hard for kids to go back to school. But after 40 days, or you can go and check after 4 months, you'll see that it's such a normal system for the students to be at school that for them not having school becomes difficult to think. And then that goes all the way into our lives as far as our jobs and careers are also concerned. But you can also see this in the field, in our day-to-day lives. When we're presented with something new, if we all go back and think about our driving, in the Western world, we have a learner's permit. From the learner's permit, you get your driver's license. First time you sit behind the wheel, it's very alien to drive, unless you have seen someone drive and you have really had some interaction with someone driving. Otherwise, it's very alien, a very new thing. But as you start to drive, slowly and gradually you start getting used to it. And the more you drive, the more you get used to it. Then comes the difficult times of driving on a small road with very minimal traffic and slow speed. You're getting onto the faster road with double lanes and multiple lanes. And then comes the highway driving. It's a whole different experience. And once you start to get used to this, after 40 days and time comes, you get so used to it. And there are some people, they become so used, they drive so much, and they get so used to it that driving is almost second nature for them. They can drink their coffee, talk on their phone, and drive and not end up making any mistakes. I do not in any way advocate to talk on your phone while you're driving or to be distracted. I'm just sharing with you that some people drive so much, they become so used to it. It becomes like second nature to them. Without even thinking, they're in the car and they're on the road. And sometimes it happens to us also. We get so used to driving that we don't even realize we're driving. Sometimes in our thoughts, we're thinking that, okay, I have to go somewhere. And inside our thoughts, we're thinking of something. And before we realize it, we're on the road. Let me ask ourselves, where am I going again? How often a time it happens? We almost completely go blank. That where was I? Where am I? Why am I on the road? It's almost so second nature. It becomes a reflex. But this is how we human beings we are. We are disciplined. And this is also how we human beings, our system of adaptation works. And you can apply this to everything in our lives, our careers, our work, our exercises, our routines. Why do our routine become a routine? Because we end up going through them. So in a similar place, this is how the human qalb, the human heart, it works. If you want to bring change in your heart, don't expect sudden and immediate change. You have to go through it gradually. If you try and take a shortcut that there's some faster way to do it, there's no faster way to do it. You have to understand this system of this gradual adaptation and gradual learning system. And what is amazing is that when we start getting into the system, thinking about the system before going into it is so difficult. You ask those students who graduate from college, what their experience was. So they'll tell you that we never thought that it was going to be this quick or this easy. This is after they graduate. They'll tell you that before we got it, we used to think how difficult it is. Thinking about something makes it much more difficult than it actually is. Once you get into it and you get into that routine, you don't even realize how much time has passed and how quickly the time passes. So this is how the very nature and adaptation of the human heart works. And this is also why it is called qalb, because this human heart is never in one condition, but it's constantly changing, even if it is at a very, very slow pace. And we're not talking about the physical heart, we're talking about the spiritual system of us human beings. They also call it psychology. It is in human mind, human understanding of human behavior, sociology, and other systems that have been given these names. But in essence, this is the understanding of the human system and the human behavior and how we human beings operate. But part of this gradual change is also unique to the system of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the human being, as insan, for us to really understand the impact of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be done for a particular amount of time, so that it becomes part of the human system. And it becomes part of the system of this human being. Same applies to the 5 times daily salah. Same applies to all of the a'mal that we perform. Don't expect immediate results. For some people it's there to give, but in general, the human system is that the results will come over time. Think of it also like exercise. It's not the first time you exercise, all of a sudden you're going to grow muscles. But over time, as you start to exercise, over some time, you'll see the results coming. The same applies with diet. When the doctors tell us to change our diet, don't expect the first time you eat some vegetables, then now all of a sudden you're healthy. It doesn't work like that. Over a period of time when the diet changes, and after some prolonged period of time, 40 days or 4 months or some time, then you start to see the difference in the health of the human being. So this is how we human beings work also when it comes to dhikr. That the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not something you just do one day and the next day you're expecting results. It doesn't work like that. The dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is what is unique about the masnoon adhkar. Why certain adhkar were the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that he made part of his daily life. And they're also a sunnah for us that we also make part of our daily life. Because they have a profound impact on the spiritual health of a believer. They have a profound impact on the spiritual system of a believer, but it has to be done on a regular basis. Then you will see the results of it. And what is amazing is the person who has the results sometimes doesn't even realize that they have results. Other people will see the effect and the impact of that dhikr in the life of a person. And this is also very important for us to understand when it comes to a person leaving this dunya with the kalima la ilaha illallah on their tongue. If we are not in the habit of saying la ilaha illallah, then remember, if this is not a habit, especially in times of pain or in times of difficulty, when we stub our toe or we get hurt or we fall into pain or something difficult happens, some sudden hardship happens, something that we hear, some news, if we are not in the habit of saying la ilaha illallah, then we should not expect that at the time of death it's going to be easy for us to say la ilaha illallah. We should not take it so lightly. From now in this world, we have to start getting in this habit of saying la ilaha illallah whenever some important or major thing happens. And the way to get into that is to obviously start doing the dhikr of la ilaha illallah. The sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was that he used to do the dhikr of La ilaha illallah 100 times. He encouraged it in the ahadith for all of us to say it 100 times daily. So we have to get into this habit of taking the kalima La ilaha illallah and making it part of our system. Because if we don't do it now, then we should not think that just automatically at the time of death we're going to be able to say it. Yeah, that's a rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from His side that He puts it on our tongue. But in general, as believers, we need to get into this practice. As human beings, we need to start getting into this practice of saying La ilaha illallah, and along also with the other adhkar as well. It's very, very important. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد، عن أبي الدرداء رضي الله عنه قال: إني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: من سلك طريقا يطلب فيه علما سلك الله به طريقا من طرق الجنة إلى آخر حديث. وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رواه أبو داود. This hadith is in Sunan Abu Dawud. The first part of this hadith, Sayyidina Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu, he narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that whosoever travels on a path seeking knowledge, meaning the knowledge of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow this person to travel on one of the paths of the many paths to paradise, or the greatest and easiest path from amongst the paths of paradise. We were going over the sifat and the qualities of a talib ilm, a student of Quran and Sunnah, and we were taken from the ayat of the Quran, from Surat al-Kahf, the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam and his interaction with Khidr alayhi salam, learning from Khidr alayhi salam. Amongst the many, many lessons that can be taken from that incident, we tried to cover as many of those lessons as we could, but one of the lessons was the Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, another lesson that should be understood, which is actually very critical to today, in this time. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he did not pick and choose what lesson he wanted to learn. He trusted Khidr alayhi salam to pick and choose the lessons that he wanted to teach Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. That's also very, very important. That when it comes to trust, where the student trusts the teacher, the student must also trust the fact that this teacher knows what is best for him. Especially when it comes to the ilm of deen. Because there are many, many, many lessons that can be taught. But there are many things inside every human being's life that a lesson may be particular for them and may not necessarily be for everyone else. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he did not tell Khidr alayhi salam that I want you to teach me this and teach me that and teach me. No. He did not go into any of those details. He just requested that, can I follow you and can I learn from you? So when someone is seeking the knowledge of Quran and Sunnah, they need to understand, when you go to a shaykh and you have put your trust in that shaykh, then whatever system the shaykh is giving you, you should take that and you should listen to it. One should not try to apply their own system. Another thing that is very unique about this story is that every lesson that was given practically. These were practical lessons. They weren't theoretical systems. They were actually practical lessons. And each one of these lessons, they apply to the life of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam indirectly. There was 3 lessons that were taught to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. But there's a lot of wisdom behind each one of these lessons, because they related to the life of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. The first lesson was that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam was traveling with Khidr alayhi salam, and the people gave them a free ride on a ship or a boat. And Khidr alayhi salam at the end broke that boat, broke a plank off the boat. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam was very disturbed by this. So he immediately commented to Khidr alayhi salam, أَخَرَقْتَهَا لِتُغْرِقَ أَهْلَهَا لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا إِمْرًا. Are you going to break this boat? Strange thing that you're doing. You're trying to drown its people. You've done something so strange. And Khidr alayhi salam, he had one rule. He told Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam that if you accompany me, don't question me. Don't question my motives, don't question me. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam brought this reservation, this comment, this question. So Khidr alayhi salam immediately reminded him, didn't I tell you not to? That you will not be able to be patient with me and you should not question me. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he gave a response that I forgot. But this was also a lesson for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and we've already gone over this portion, where it was related to Fir'aun, that Fir'aun had raised up Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. And afterwards, when Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam came back and gave da'wah to Fir'aun, and Fir'aun rejected the da'wah, and Fir'aun ended up causing even more harm to the Bani Israel. So in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed Fir'aun, but destroyed Fir'aun at the hands of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. So just like here in this portion where the people did a favor to Khidr alayhi salam, giving him a free ride on the boat. But Khidr alayhi salam, he broke the boat, rather than, as if indirectly, rather than being grateful, he broke the boat. But there was a great wisdom behind that. That Khidr alayhi salam, later on, he explained that there was a king that was confiscating every good boat and taking that boat for warfare. But if there was any broken boat, the king didn't confiscate it because they didn't have, or they didn't want to fix it, take time fixing it. So they didn't confiscate the broken boats. So this boat belonged to a group of poor people. Masakin ya'maluna fil bahr. They were fishermen, and they made their livelihood from this boat. So if the king had confiscated this boat, the people would not have had any livelihood. So I broke the boat. Later on, the people will realize the benefit of this broken boat, and they may even thank me. That is why Khidr alayhi salam, he was instructed to break the boat. He didn't do it from his own side, but this instruction came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second incident was that when they got off the boat, they were on the beach, on the ocean side, and they were walking. And Khidr alayhi salam, he motioned for a boy to come. So one boy came. So Khidr alayhi salam, he grabbed the boy and he snapped the boy's neck. He killed the boy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Kahf, فَانْطَلَقَا حَتَّى إِذَا لَقِيَا غُلَامًا فَقَتَلَا. They met a boy, and Khidr alayhi salam, he killed the boy. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, shocked, being a Nabi, having the ilm of Sharia, and he looked at Sayyidina Khidr, he looked at Khidr alayhi salam, that أَقَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيَّةً بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ. He said, you committed murder, you killed an innocent soul. لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُقْرًا. You're coming with some misdeed and sin like this. Khidr alayhi salam, he reminded Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam that, did I not tell you, you will not be able to have patience with me? There's a very, very deep lesson here also. First, we'll go over the lessons related to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam's life, but also then the lessons for us. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, when he was a youth, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surat Al-Qasas, when Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he became a young adult, a man of strength. So he used to, go out at night. And at night time when people would sleep or something, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, when he was young, he used to go out on a stroll. This was still when he was under the care of Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that when he was strolling one night, وَدَخَلَ الْمَدِينَةَ عَلَى حِينِ غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he went out into the city. People were sleeping and resting time. فَوَجَدَ Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that فَوَجَدَ فِيهَا رَجُلَيْنِ يَقْتَتِلَانِ. That Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he saw two men, they were fighting. هَذَا مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ عَدُوِّهِ. This was from his tribe and the other one was from the people of Fir'aun. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he tried to break up the fight. And breaking up the fight, he pushed the man that was from the people of Fir'aun, because the man from the people of Fir'aun was beating the man who was from the tribe of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he kind of gave a good hit to the man who was from the people of Fir'aun and who was beating the other man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the ayat of the Quran, فَوَكَزَهُ مُوسَى فَقَضَى عَلَيْهِ. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam gave him one blow to push him off. And that was the end for that man. The man passed away. He died on the spot. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he did not have any intention to kill the man. But he just wanted to break up the fight. He tried to push the person away. And it was a mistake. قَالَ هَذَا مِنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Immediately Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he realized this is from the amal in the action of shaitan. إِنَّهُ عَدُوٌ مُضِلٌّ مُبِينٌ. He's an enemy and very, very lost. And Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam immediately repented. رَبِّ إِنِّي ظَلَمْتُ نَفْسِي فَاغْفِرْ لِي. He made this dua. Oh my Rabb, I've done wrong to myself. Please forgive me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately forgave him. It was a mistake. But there are some mistakes in human life that lifelong they regret. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam throughout his life used to regret that there was this one when I was young, I didn't know my own strength. And I killed this one innocent man by mistake. I didn't, So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this incident showed Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam that you did make that mistake. Let me show you the effect of that mistake, that it's not really a mistake and you need to stop having this thought in your mind. So Khidr alayhi salam, he killed this youth, and later on Khidr alayhi salam explained his action that this youth was going to grow up and be very, very harmful and destructive to his parents. وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ أَبُوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ فَخَشِينَا أَن يُرْهِقَهُمَا طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. That we had this fear that this boy was going to grow up. His parents were righteous, but this boy was very wicked. When Khidr alayhi salam, he killed this boy, he said, I had this fear that he was going to grow up and be very, very rebellious and harmful to his parents. فَأَرَدْنَا أَن يُبْدِلَهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا خَيْرًا مِنْهُ زَكَاةً وَأَقْرَبَ رُحْمًا. And we wanted and we intended that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would bless the parents with a replacement child that will be pure and even more loving and close to the parents. The Mufassirin have written that Khidr alayhi salam killed a boy and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced this boy, gave the parents a daughter. So the daughter was more loving and close to the parents and taking care of the parents. أَقْرَبَ رُحْمًا. Very, very close and loving and more merciful and kind to the parents. But this was a lesson for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, that you killed a man before. You need to stop psychologically beating yourself on this. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave you, so move on. And even in the ayat of Surah Al-Qasas, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam made quite a few places, he made this dua. رَبِّ إِنِّي قَتَلْتُ مِنْهُمْ نَفْسًا فَأَخَافُ أَنْ يَقْتُلُونَ. Oh my Rabbi, I even killed a man from amongst them. I'm afraid that they'll kill me. And he was kind of still having this regret after even a very, very long time. So this was the indirect lesson for Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam in that. But this comes when a person trusts the teacher that whatever lesson the teacher will teach me, it will be beneficial for me. So it is a kind of lesson for us to also learn about trusting the shuyukh and the ulama when we go to them and ask them for information. There's a third lesson that was also taught to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, but inshallah we'll do that next time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.